All right, I want to talk about time travel. I'm looking forward to this all day. I've been looking forward to talking with Ashton Forbes all day in the secret technology. Yes, the White House admitting this week, on the record, by the way,
time travel has fascinated people for hundreds of years. The idea of moving through time, whether to revisit past moments or see the future, sparks curiosity and fuels the imagination. This interest in time travel existed long before modern films like Interstellar and Marvel's movies. While many doubt its possibility, there are some unusual stories about people claiming to have experienced it firsthand. For example, 2 reporters reportedly witnessed a major news event before it actually happened. Could time travel really be real? Let's explore the truth about time machines. In early 1995, Mike Markham, a 21-year-old electrical engineering student from Stanberry, Missouri, began working on building a time machine. His plan was to get rich by traveling to the future and retrieving winning lottery numbers. He reportedly had little formal training. Most of his experiments took place on the back porch of his house, which was cluttered with old electronics like broken TVs, radios, and CDs, making it look like a junkyard. Mike was experimenting with a device called Jacob's Ladder when he noticed something unusual. He had modified Jacob's Ladder with a homemade electronic transformer rated at 20,000 volts. Mike built this transformer himself because the normal household voltage in the U.S. is only 120/240 volts. For the conductors in Jacob's Ladder, he used wire hangers and lasers to heat the air around the conductors, which helped manage air pressure and temperature changes that might disrupt the experiment. While using the device, Mike claimed to see a circular vortex about 8 inches wide. To test it, he repeatedly tossed a sheet metal screw into the vortex. According to Mike, each time the screw vanished and then reappeared a few feet away a second later. He believed the metal screw had been sent through time, reappearing when time caught up to it. Encouraged by this, Mike aimed to take the next step. He planned to build a time machine that was 8 feet tall instead of the small 8-inch Jacob's Ladder used in his first experiment. But he faced a big challenge. He needed a lot more power to continue his research at a scale suitable for human use. While he was working on enlarging the machine, it caught fire. Still determined, Mike decided that using larger transformers to get higher voltages was the right approach if he rebuilt the device. However, each transformer would cost around $20,000, so he chose to steal 6 old transformers from a local power plant to keep working. When he connected these transformers to Jacob's Ladder, it caused a huge blackout in his neighborhood, shutting down the electrical grid for several hours. Not long after, police showed up at his home with a search warrant and arrested him for the theft. Mike reportedly told the judge during his trial that he was trying to find the winning lottery numbers to fund a research lab. After spending a few months in jail, he became known locally by sharing stories about the missing screw and his time machine plans on the radio. He appeared on Art Bell's radio show, a program known for discussing paranormal topics. The host, Art Bell, quickly called him Madman Mike, a nickname Mike accepted happily. The story of Madman Mike is still available on the radio station's website. On the show, Mike said he had run out of money and spare parts to continue his research. He even shared his phone number live on air, which led to non-stop calls for 3 days. Thanks to donations from listeners, his next time machine was more powerful and ambitious. He planned to test it on himself, hoping to create an electromagnetic vortex large enough for a person to walk through. A year later, when he returned to the radio show, Mike was asked what he would take on his time travel trip. He said he would bring his phone. In 1996, he told the show he was 30 days away from completing a working time machine. However, in 1997, he disappeared without a trace and was never heard from again, making him part of one of the biggest time travel mysteries. Shortly after his disappearance, a radio listener called in with a strange story. They said that in the 1930s, police found a dead man on a California beach crushed inside a metal tube. Next to the body was an unusual object that looked like a cell phone. Mike seemed to reappear online in 2022, denying the rumors that he had died traveling to the 1930s. There were also reports that he had been interviewed again by his local radio station in 2015. That year, he posted on a paranormal blog under the username Madman Mike. The account had been active since 2015. He wrote, "Rumors are spreading that I am dead, not well, and that I time-traveled to the 1930s, where I died on a beach in a tube. The pictures of the redhead aren't me either. That was some kid with my name that someone mistakenly linked to me long ago. Whatever was found in the 1930s wasn't me. I've read that was debunked, but can't find the article." When asked about his future plans for the time machine, he said it is currently stalled because he needs inverters. He mentioned having some 24-volt panels in his bus for a project, but they were left outside and got damaged. His followers have been asking for proof that he is actually Mike Madman, but he hasn't provided any. So, it's still unclear if Mike is around. Some believe he just changed his name and now lives a quiet life, while others think his time machine experiment might have actually worked. Most physicists don't think time travel is realistic, but in theoretical physics, there are a few ideas that suggest time travel could be possible, even if it would be extremely difficult. One of those ideas is based on Einstein's theory of general relativity. According to that theory, time and space are connected in a structure called space-time. When massive objects are near strong gravitational fields, time can slow down. This is called time dilation, and it has been shown in experiments using atomic clocks on fast-moving planes or near large gravitational forces. Some theoretical solutions, like closed time-like curves, CTCs, allow for the possibility of traveling into the past. These are hypothetical loops in space-time that could let someone return to a previous moment. One solution based on this idea is the Gödel metric, which involves rotating universes that support CTCs. But CTCs bring up serious problems, like the grandfather paradox, where someone could change the past in a way that prevents their own existence. These issues raise questions about how consistent space-time really is. Some researchers at MIT have explored whether quantum teleportation and limiting what a time traveler can do might solve the paradox. But that work is still purely theoretical. Quantum mechanics adds another layer of complexity. One of its core ideas, the uncertainty principle, says there's a limit to how precisely we can know certain pairs of properties, like position and momentum, at the same time. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics suggest there may be alternate timelines or parallel universes where every possible outcome actually happens. The multiverse theory expands on this by suggesting that there may be countless universes outside our own. The observable universe is already incredibly large, with galaxies containing billions or even trillions of stars. Some scientists think the universe might be about 7 billion light-years in circumference. Some theories go beyond what we can see and try to explain parallel or remote worlds that resemble ours. Discussions about parallel universes often come up alongside theories like string theory and the Big Bang. But even these theories don't suggest we can move between different universes. And if we could, it's still unclear whether that would count as time travel. There are still major roadblocks to time travel. The amount of energy required is one of the biggest. Right now, we don't have the technology to send anything faster than the speed of light, which would be needed for traveling into the future. And we also don't have working wormhole machines to go back in time. Many time travel theories rely on negative mass or negative energy, neither of which has ever been found. Even some ideas that avoid using negative energy still need more power than what exists in the entire universe. There are also questions about dark matter and dark energy. These concepts are still not fully understood, and they add more uncertainty to theories about time travel. Quantum gravity, another key concept, remains largely theoretical due to the lack of evidence and the limits of our current understanding. Time travel is far more complicated than the simple idea of getting into a machine and choosing a date. Even from a scientific standpoint, it's mostly hypothetical. We're dealing with ideas and energy types we can't explain, let alone use. Still, despite the lack of proof, some people have claimed to experience time travel. One well-known case involves Sir Victor Goddard. Sir Robert Victor Goddard was an air marshal in the Royal Air Force. In 1935, while serving as a wing commander, he was asked to inspect an old airbase in Drem, Scotland, near Edinburgh. When flying over it, he saw that the base was abandoned and in bad shape. The tarmac was cracked, and cows were grazing on overgrown grass. It was obvious to him that the airfield had not been used for a long time. While flying his biplane later that day, Sir Goddard ran into a strange storm. Strong winds and brownish-yellow clouds surrounded his plane, causing him to lose control. His aircraft started to spiral down, but he was able to regain control and fly out of the storm. Suddenly, the bad weather disappeared, and he found himself flying in clear, sunny skies. The stormy day had turned into a calm and bright one in just moments. Then, something even stranger happened. The airbase he had flown over earlier, which had been abandoned, now looked completely active. He saw mechanics in blue coveralls working on yellow planes. The planes were different from anything the Air Force used in 1935. In fact, one of them was so unfamiliar that Sir Goddard couldn't even identify it. It didn't make sense how the base could have been repaired and put back into service so quickly. The uniforms were also wrong. Mechanics in 1935 wore khaki, not blue, and the planes were supposed to be silver, not yellow. He probably tried to come up with a reasonable explanation for what he saw, but 4 years later, he returned to Drem during the war and saw the same scene again. The base now had mechanics in blue working on the same yellow planes, including the very model he hadn't been able to recognize before. The Miles Magister. Some skeptics claimed Sir Goddard had just landed at the wrong place in 1935. But this doesn't explain all the details in his story. The Miles Magister didn't even exist until 1937. The colors of the uniforms and the planes weren't used until years later. The strange weather, followed by a clear sky, also doesn't fit with a simple mix-up. It's hard to find a normal explanation that covers everything he reported. Sir Goddard wasn't the only person to report something like this. Another strange event involved a possible time traveler on Highway 167. In 1988, Strange Magazine published a story called Time Traveler, written by Ken Moe. It described an event from October 20th, 1969. A man known as L.C. and his business partner Charlie were driving on Highway 167 toward Lafayette, Louisiana, after having lunch in Abbeville. It was around 1:30 p.m. The sky was clear, and the temperature was about 60 degrees, so they had the windows down and were enjoying the drive. As they continued on the highway, they saw a car approaching slowly. At first, it didn't seem unusual, but as it got closer, they noticed how odd it looked. It was a turtleback-style car that looked like it came from the 1940s. Despite its age, it looked brand new, like it had just come out of a showroom. Curious, L.C. and Charlie took a closer look as they passed. The car had a large orange license plate with the year 1940 on it. They immediately thought that it couldn't possibly be legal to drive such a car unless it was part of a parade or some special event. Elsie looked at the driver and was surprised. The driver was a young woman wearing clothes that looked like they came straight from the 1940s, including a feathered hat and a fur coat. A child stood on the passenger seat, also dressed in heavy, outdated clothing. The style didn't match anything from 1969, and it was odd that they were dressed so warmly on a cool but not cold day. The woman also had her windows rolled up, even though the weather was nice. When Elsie and Charlie pulled up next to her car, they saw that she looked frightened and panicked. She was glancing around as if she were lost or didn't know what was happening. Elsie asked if she needed help, and she nodded yes. She seemed confused by the car they were driving. Since cars from the 1940s sat higher than those in the 1960s, she had to look down to see them. It also seemed like she couldn't hear them well, maybe because her windows were up. Elsie motioned for her to pull over to the side of the road. After repeating the gesture several times, she finally seemed to understand. To their surprise, when they pulled over and turned to look, there was no sign of the woman or her car. Highway 167 is a wide-open road with no real place to hide a vehicle, so they couldn't understand how she and the car were gone so quickly. It seemed like she had just disappeared. Right after that, another vehicle that had been following the antique car stopped behind them. The driver got out and walked over, asking what had happened to the car in front. He was confused and thought there had been an accident involving Elsie's car and the old one. The three men started talking and shared what they had each seen. The third man, who wasn't from the area, wanted to report it to the police, thinking it might be a missing person case. But Elsie and his friend didn't want to go, mostly because they had no idea where the woman and child had gone. They all exchanged contact information and stayed in touch for years, checking in with each other to make sure they hadn't imagined what they saw. No one could explain what really happened. Some have guessed that the woman and her child might have been from the year 1940 and somehow ended up in another time. Others believe they were stuck between different time periods and never returned to their original one. While Elsie and the others might have witnessed something from the past, there's another story where two men seem to see the future, years before it happened. In the Little Giant Book of Eerie Thrills and Unspeakable Chills, authors Ron Edwards, C.B. Colby, and John Macklin describe a strange event involving two newsmen. In 1932, reporter J. Bernard Hutton and photographer Joachim Brandt were visiting the Hamburg shipyard in Germany for a feature story. As they were getting ready to leave, they suddenly heard aircraft overhead. When they looked up, the sky was filled with warplanes. Anti-aircraft guns started firing, and bombs were falling and exploding. The whole area looked like it was under attack. Hutton asked a security guard if they could help, but the guard told them to leave immediately. The two men ran to their car and drove into Hamburg. But once they got into the city, everything looked normal. The sky was clear, buildings were intact, and no one seemed alarmed. They looked back toward the shipyard and saw no smoke or signs of damage. When they returned to the office and told their co-workers, no one believed them. Brandt had taken photos during the chaos, but the pictures showed no damage. Everything looked completely normal. Their story was dismissed, with some people joking that they must have stopped for a drink and imagined the whole thing. Years later, before the start of World War II, Hutton moved to London. In 1943, he read a news story that shocked him. The Royal Air Force had carried out a successful bombing raid on the Hamburg shipyard, just as he and Brandt had seen back in 1932. Everything described in the article matched what they had witnessed 11 years earlier. So far, we've looked at people who seem to experience time travel without knowing how or why. But one man tried to use it to his advantage. On January 28, 2003, a man named Andrew Carlson was arrested by the FBI for suspected insider trading. Over just 2 weeks, he turned $800 into $350 million. He made 126 high-risk trades and didn't lose on a single one. His trading success was so unlikely that the Securities and Exchange Commission brought in the FBI to investigate. While in custody, Carlson claimed that he was from the year 2256. He said he knew how the market would behave because he had already seen it in the future. He even offered to prove it by revealing the location of Osama bin Laden and a cure for AIDS. Authorities didn't believe his story. They thought he was either joking or lying. But shortly after posting bail, Carlson disappeared. Despite efforts to find him, there was no trace of where he went. What made things even more unusual was that no records of Carlson existed before the early 2000s. There were no birth or school records, no ID, no medical history. Nothing. Some people believe Carlson was not a time traveler, just a scammer who outsmarted the system. Others think he may have actually come from the future. One detail that keeps coming up is his alleged prediction of the exact date the U.S. invaded Iraq. Thanks for watching these strange stories about time travel. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.